10 greatest Catholic saints who were declared doctors of the Church. Top 1. St. Jerome. St. Jerome was born in Stridon, a town in Dalmatia, present-day Croatia, around 340 AD. His early education in rhetoric, dialectics, and familiarity with Latin and Greek literature set the stage for his future endeavors. As an influential figure in the 4th century, he is renowned for his theological works and his translation of the Holy Scriptures into Latin, the Vulgate, which continues to resonate to this day. His ascetic life in the Chalcis desert in Syria during his early adult years laid the foundation for his first theological writings. He made such a significant impact that Pope Boniface VIII declared him a doctor of the Church in the 13th century. St. Jerome's feast day is celebrated on September 30th in the Roman Catholic Church and on June 15th in the Eastern Orthodox Church. The prerequisite for being declared a doctor of the Church is to make substantial contributions to theology through writing, study, and research. St. Jerome's works certainly met these criteria, as he wrote prolifically throughout his 80-year-long life. His literary corpus includes works on the Scriptures, commentaries, treatises on various topics, as well as refutations of prevalent heresies of his time, such as Arianism. He also staunchly defended the doctrine of the perpetual virginity of the Blessed Virgin Mary. However, his most valuable contribution to the faith is his translation of the Old and New Testaments from Hebrew and Greek into Latin, known as the Vulgate, the authoritative Bible of the Roman Catholic. In addition to the Vulgate, many of St. Jerome's works addressed controversial subjects and displayed a sharp, sometimes satirical writing style, leading to disputes with those who held opposing views. Top 2. St. Augustine. St. Augustine was born in 354 in Tagist, North Africa. He was raised in the Christian faith, but was not baptized, a common practice in the early centuries until adulthood. As an ambitious student with exceptional talents and a penchant for worldly pleasures, he quickly lost his faith and innocence. St. Augustine passionately pursued the study of philosophy. He taught grammar, rhetoric, and literature for 9 years in his hometown of Tagist and in Carthage. He continued to live a dissolute life and held erroneous beliefs until the age of 32. While still a brilliant rhetoric student in Milan, under the influence of St. Ambrose, Augustine recounted in his autobiography how his childhood Christian faith began to dominate his intellect, yet he struggled to break free from his bad habits. Through a friend, Augustine read a book by St. Paul and discovered the truth of life. He sought out a priest and was baptized, returning to North Africa. He divested himself of all his possessions and gave to the poor. In Hippo, where he settled, he was ordained a priest in 395. For 35 years, St. Augustine was a central figure in the Church in North Africa and the strongest opponent of heresies. His writings, including numerous accepted volumes, became primary sources for both Catholic spirituality and theological reasoning. This great doctor of the Church passed away in deep sorrow, mourned by the entire Catholic world, in the year 430. Top 3. St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Thomas Aquinas was born in 1226 as the son of Landulf, the Count of Aquino. During his early education, his teachers marveled at his extraordinary progress, both academically and in the development of his virtues. When the time came to choose a life path, he renounced all worldly possessions and decided to join the Dominican order. Despite his family's opposition, in 1243, at the age of 17, St. Thomas Aquinas entered the Dominican order in Naples. Some family members tried everything during the 2 years to dissuade him, even hiring a woman to seduce him, but all their efforts were in vain, as he remained steadfast in his calling. As a reward for his fidelity, God granted him perfect purity, a fitting title for him as the angelic doctor. After professing his vows in Naples, St. Thomas studied in Cologne under the renowned St. Albert the Great. Here, he earned the nickname the Dumb Ox because of his silent disposition and large stature. However, he was indeed an outstanding student. At the age of 20, he was appointed to teach in the same city. He also began publishing his early works. After 4 years, St. Thomas was sent to Paris, where he was already a priest. At the age of 31, he received his doctorate. In 1261, Pope Urban IV called him to Rome, where he was appointed to teach, but he declined any remuneration from the Church. St. Thomas not only wrote extensively, but also frequently preached on matters of faith. Pope Clement IV proposed him as Archbishop of Naples, but he continued to decline. He left behind his great body of knowledge, known as the Summa Theologica, which was left unfinished because, on his way to the Second Council of Lyons, following Pope Gregory X's order, St. Thomas Aquinas fell ill and passed away in the monastery of Fars Nuova in 1274. He remains one of the greatest and most influential theologians. Officially canonized in 1323 and declared a Doctor of the Church by Pope Pius V. 4. St. Teresa of Avila. St. Teresa of Avila was born in 1515 in central Spain. Into a noble family, her father was a knight. In her childhood, she dreamt of becoming a martyr for the faith or a hermit. When she decided to follow her faith, she entered the Carmelite monastery of Avila. This monastery was quite large and had many nuns who brought their social status with them, creating separate kitchens, prayer rooms, and living quarters. Although the monastery did not have a notorious reputation, it did not produce any saints either. In contrast, St. Teresa prayed regularly, obeyed the rules, and endured fasting and normal self-mortification. At the age of 20, she fell seriously ill with malaria, experienced seizures, and was believed to have died. 4 days later, when she woke up, she found that a grave had already been dug for her. St. Teresa later became paralyzed for 3 years. While reading certain exemplary works on prayer, she gradually believed that her monastery was too relaxed, and the Church needed more stringent devotion. Inspired by the great reformers of the 16th century, many of whom were Spanish, she decided to establish a new Carmelite monastery. However, she faced strong opposition, both from within her own monastery and the Carmelite order in general. Her reform efforts began in the mid-1550s and culminated when the first monastery was opened in Avila in 1562. The nuns in her monasteries were not allowed to wear shoes, were limited to a maximum of 13 nuns in each monastery, and were not permitted to bring money or possessions. They were required to live in true poverty, fast, mortify themselves, and engage in fervent prayer. St. Teresa spent the last 20 years of her life traveling across Spain to establish new Carmelite monasteries. In her middle age, she became known for her holiness, mystical theology, and complete obedience to the Church. Her Carmelite reform received recognition as a separate branch within the Carmelite order in 1594, 12 years after her death. In 1622, she was canonized as a saint along with St. Philip Neri, St. Ignatius of Loyola, and St. Francis Xavier. Notably, St. Teresa of Avila was the first woman to be declared a Doctor of the Church, and her feast day was extended to the Universal Church. Top 5. St. John Chrysostom. St. John Chrysostom was born in 347 in Antioch, and was a great intellectual. In the theological disputes of the 4th and 5th centuries, he became a prominent figure alongside other renowned figures, like St. Ambrose, St. Athanasius, St. Hilary, and St. Basil. He received an excellent education in the liberal arts and was baptized at the age of 18, which was in accordance with the custom of adult baptism at that time. St. John Chrysostom joined a simple ascetic community on the hills outside his hometown at the age of 20. However, the harsh physical and psychological conditions forced him to leave after 7 years. He was ordained a priest in 386, and his bishop recognized his talents, appointing him to care for the physical needs of the poor in Antioch, while also serving as a preacher. St. John's preaching was so eloquent that, even a century after his death, he was given the title Golden-Mouthed. His profound theological insights were equally impressive, and his sermons and writings displayed a keen understanding of the complexities of the Holy Trinity and the Gospels. In 398, St. John was appointed as the Archbishop of Constantinople, New Rome, which led to some jealousy among his contemporaries. He did not support himself with excessive reforms, despite holding the office of Archbishop. However, due to some critical remarks, he was accused of various offences, including treason, and subsequently exiled in 402. After a severe earthquake in Constantinople, St. John Chrysostom was reinstated, leading many to believe it was a divine punishment for his earlier expulsion. However, he was exiled again shortly after. Like other exiled popes and bishops, practical help never materialized. St. John Chrysostom passed away during his second exile in 407. Within a decade, his reputation was restored by the Pope, and his remains were transferred to be buried in Constantinople. He was recognized by the Council of Chalcedon as a Father of the Church in 451 and declared a Doctor of the Church in 1568. Top 6. St. Cyril of Jerusalem. St. Cyril of Jerusalem was born around 315 AD. Little is known about his early life, except that he received a good education in Scripture and philosophy. He was ordained a deacon at the Church of Jerusalem at the age of 20 by St. Macarius, the Bishop of Jerusalem, who was staunchly against Arianism at the time. After St. Macarius's death, St. Maximus succeeded him as bishop and ordained Cyril as a priest when he was around 28 years old. In his priestly ministry, Cyril became a true pastor of souls. Bishop Maximus entrusted him with the responsibilities of preaching and catechesis. Cyril delivered daily Sunday sermons and taught catechism to those preparing for baptism. A collection of 24 of his catechetical lectures has been preserved, containing valuable insights and detailed instruction. In 348, Bishop Maximus passed away, and Cyril was chosen to succeed him. He was consecrated as bishop by Acacius, the bishop of Caesarea Maritima, a city west of Jerusalem. Soon after becoming bishop, a strange sign was seen in the holy places, particularly at the spot where Jesus was crucified. A great light in the sky surrounded by a rainbow stretching about 2 miles. While initially taken as a divine affirmation, it may also have been a sign of the hardships Cyril would face. These difficulties began as he opposed Acacius due to their differing beliefs. Cyril strongly opposed Arianism, whereas Bishop Acacius supported it. Due to these tensions, Acacius and other Arian bishops, along with the emperor, accused Cyril, deposed him, and exiled him from Jerusalem 3 times over nearly 40 years. Despite controversies regarding theology and ecclesiastical politics, Cyril remained a true pastor, preaching and teaching as he did as a priest. His gentle, reconciliatory, and humble approach to his office led some Orthodox bishops to suspect that he had a sympathetic attitude towards the Arians. For this reason, after his final return from exile in 378, St. Gregory of Nazianzus was sent to investigate him. The investigation concluded that Cyril was Orthodox, ending all suspicions. In 381, the Council of Constantinople further clarified the Arian heresy and affirmed the position of Cyril as the Bishop of Jerusalem. Consequently, he returned and continued to be a holy shepherd to his people until his death 6 years later. St. Cyril of Jerusalem was named a Doctor of the Church by Pope Leo XIII in 1883. 7. St. Anthony of Padua. St. Anthony of Padua was born in 1195 in Lisbon, Portugal, into a wealthy noble family. His family's affluence allowed him to receive an education during a time when illiteracy was still widespread. At the age of 15, Anthony joined a Catholic religious order following the rule of St. Augustine. He was soon drawn to the way of life of the Franciscan friars, whom he encountered in Coimbra. Learning about the martyrdom of 5 of his fellow friars in Morocco while trying to spread Christianity, they further inspired him to join them. Motivated by their sacrifice, he entered a hermitage in Olivet and changed his name from Fernando to Anthony. After spending a short time in Morocco, Sicily, and Tuscany, he arrived in Forli, Romania, in 1222, where he was invited to preach to a group of Dominican friars. Impressed by his eloquence and knowledge of the Holy Scriptures, the community sent him to Romania, where he met the founder of the Franciscan order, St. Francis of Assisi. St. Anthony later became a renowned preacher and teacher, ultimately becoming the provincial superior in northern Italy, while also residing in the city of Padua. He passed away in 1231 due to natural causes, and less than a year after his death, he was canonized as a saint by Pope Gregory IX in 1232. In 1946, due to his extensive studies of the Scriptures, Pope Pius XII declared him a Doctor of the Church and bestowed upon him the title. In the Holy Land, St. Anthony of Padua holds special significance. His simplicity and devotion to God made him a model for both the religious and spiritual life of the Catholic faith. In 1920, Pope Benedict XV named him the patron saint of Italy, and he interceded on behalf of Italy during the conflict between England and Turkey in 1917. Top 8. St. Catherine of Siena. St. Catherine of Siena, along with St. Teresa of Avila, was one of the first women to be named a Doctor of the Church. She was born in Siena in 1347 and early on decided not to marry. After several years of prayer and fasting, she began an active life of service. St. Catherine daily cared for the sick in a local hospital, notably during the outbreak of the plague in 1374. She believed she had a divine calling to proclaim the gospel and, as a result, organized a group of followers to assist her in her missionary journeys. As an ardent supporter of the Catholic Church, she openly revered the positions of the Pope, bishops, and doctors of the Church as ambassadors of Christ. However, she also vehemently criticized the corruption she perceived in many members of the clergy and the hierarchical system of the Church, believing they should embrace poverty and humility rather than indulging in worldly extravagance and pride. Nonetheless, St. Catherine realized that lasting reform in the Church required strong papal leadership. In 1376, she met with Pope Gregory XI in Avignon, France, where he had been exiled since 1309, urging him to return to Rome. In a letter, she emphasized that he needed to be courageous, not timid. Catherine's letter strengthened the Pope's resolve, and he returned to Rome in 1377. After Gregory's death the following year, and the subsequent election of Pope Urban VI, a major schism in the Church occurred. For the next 39 years, there were at least 3 claimants to the papacy. St. Catherine frequently corresponded with various church authorities, encouraging them to recognize Urban as the legitimate successor. Between 1377 and 1378, she composed a dialogue expressing her mystical experiences in her spiritual life. Many scholars have praised this significant work of mystical theology alongside other great classics, such as the works of the 2 doctors of the Church, St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross. Pope Urban even invited her to Rome in 1380 to support his papacy, but she suffered a stroke on her way there. St. Catherine of Siena passed away on April 29, 1380, at the age of 33. She was canonized in 1461 and became one of the patron saints of Italy. She was declared a Doctor of the Church in 1970 and the patron saint of Europe in 1999. Top 9. St. Peter Damian. St. Peter Damian was born in 1007, the youngest child of a poor but noble family in Ravenna, Italy. His parents died when he was young, and he was mistreated by one of his older brothers, who forced him into servitude. Eventually, another brother, a priest named Damian, took him in and provided him with a good education. Peter was so grateful to his brother that he added Damian's name to his own, becoming Peter Damian. After completing his education, Peter began teaching with great success. However, he soon realized that the university environment was not suitable for him, so he retreated to a hermitage in Fontavellana for 40 days. After completing his retreat, he discerned a vocation to the monastic life and became a true monk. As a monk, St. Peter Damian led a life of prayer, penance, and severe asceticism. His intellectual gifts were eventually put to use when he was asked to teach fellow monks. In the years that followed, he taught in monasteries throughout the region and began to write. In 1043, at the age of 35, he was appointed abbot of his own monastery. He led the brethren with zeal and fidelity to their monastic rule, and also established new hermitages in the surrounding villages. During Peter's time, Pope Benedict IX was a notorious and scandalous figure who had come to power through bribery. In 1045, Benedict decided to abdicate the papacy in order to marry his cousin. Before doing so, he wrote to the leading cardinal bishop, John Gratian, seeking advice. As a man of integrity, Gratian encouraged him to resign, which Benedict did. He left the papacy to Gratian, who became Pope Gregory VI. St. Peter Damian rejoiced at this change, and wrote to the new pope, urging him to address corruption and scandals in the Church. In the years that followed, Pope Gregory called upon Peter Damian to assist in his reform efforts. Peter wrote numerous letters and worked with other scholars to compile a work on the history of the Church to counter a famous history book that distorted the truth about the role of the Catholic Church in European history. In 1057, at the age of 65, after returning from a mission in Ravenna, Peter Damian fell seriously ill. He spent a week at a nearby monastery and then passed away in 1828. He was formally declared a Doctor of the Church. 10. St. Peter Canisius. St. Peter Canisius was born in 1521 in the Netherlands. He studied at the University of Cologne. During his studies, he prayed at the Carthusian monastery and met one of the first Jesuits. After a period of discernment, he decided to join the Society of Jesus. St. Peter Canisius was ordained a priest in 1546. Just 1 year later, he attended a session of the Council of Trent as a German bishop. After gaining experience at the highest level of church life, he was sent by St. Ignatius of Loyola to teach at a small Jesuit college. This only lasted for a short time, as his erudition and skills were destined to go further. Peter was a working scholar, teacher, and preacher. He did everything well. He edited the works of St. Cyril of Alexandria, St. Leo the Great, and St. Jerome. He also wrote over 8,000 pages of letters to people from all walks of life. Peter constantly refined his popular catechisms, and he worked for many years with other scholars to compile a work on church history, to counter a famous Protestant history book that distorted the truth about the role of Catholicism in European history. His life took him all over Central Europe. In a time of great religious tension, the shock waves from the Protestant Reformation had stunned the Central European psyche for decades. Violence spread from Germany in waves. When Peter was in Vienna, everyone, including the people and the princes, wanted him to stay as their bishop, but St. Ignatius, his superior, said no, because his skills were needed elsewhere. He then went to Prague, starting with the Jesuit colleges, preaching to empty churches, next Bavaria, then Switzerland and Poland. The zeal, learning, and holiness of St. Peter were evident. He saw most Protestants as innocent. He reserved his rare attacks for the heretics themselves or for others of knowledge, who should have known better. He distinguished between those who deliberately apostatized and those who were victims of circumstance. St. Peter Canisius was a ceaseless storm that poured down knowledge, books, sermons, and letters throughout Central Europe. He brought calm and moderation to a time of great violence. He was canonized and declared a doctor of the Church on the same day, in 1925.